Hello. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I see there's quite a few people in the comments. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for people to arrive, and then we'll get started with this week's sound design sessions looking at the Cherry Audio PS-20. So yeah, hopefully everyone can hear me loud and clear and see me. It's been a lot of fun these past couple of weeks doing these. And this week we're looking at this brand new virtual emulation of the Korg MS-20. And it's got a lot of new features over the original MS-20. It'll be fun to see if anyone in the comments is, from the original MS-20 era. I certainly am not, but I have had experience using it. And it's a really, really fun synth. And in the past I've used it for... I've used it a lot for mono sounds, and there's a reason for that, because the MS-20 is a mono synth, but Cherry Audio have just took that step further, and I love it when a company does that, as they take something, an old historic synth, and they bring a new lease of life into it and add new features. And that is clearly what Cherry Audio has done with this, because the PS-20 is now... it has polyphony, it's polyphonic. I think it has up to, off the top of my head, I think it has 16 voices available. But yeah, I never owned a physical one of these. It was something I'd like to own. And like I said, I mainly liked it for mono lead lines bases. And also, I used to like it for effect stuff, like use the filters to create like white noise risers and stuff, because you got white noise and pink noise and stuff. Yeah, I get that's a good point. I guess PS is because it's the polyphonic synth 20, not the monophonic synth 20. But I've had a chance with this for a couple of weeks now, thanks to the guys at Cherry Audio, and this should be a fun one. So anyone who tuned in last week's one, which was when we were looking at, I'll take these glasses off because they have a horrible glare when I look in the camera. Anyone who tuned in last week, when we were looking at organic wavetable design, this week we will be looking at a new product. And last week was fun, and the week before that we were looking at Multiphonic CV1. So if you want to watch them, they're always available. Every Monday I do these streams, guys, from 6 in the UK, which is, it works for our friends in the Eastern time. But for one exception, I'll say this now. This Sunday I'll be doing this stream, because next week I'm actually off on holiday. So if you want to watch the sound design session for what would be next Monday, that will be on Sunday. So be sure to hit the bell icon on YouTube or Twitch, wherever you're watching on, or Facebook, and stay notified, and hit like if you enjoy these videos, because they're free. And the whole idea with sound design sessions on a Monday is to teach you basic synthesis and sound design right through to advanced stuff. And last week was one of those advanced weeks. So this week we will spend the first 40 to 45 minutes exploring how we can work with the PS-20, what the features it has, a lot of cool features that we never seen on the original. And we will also look at how we can sort of create a new patch and how we can shape an initial patch. So rather than just constantly looking at the presets, which are fantastic, and I think it has some like between 200 to 300 presets by some fantastic sound designers, we'll look at how we can create initialized patch and shape it and subtract elements away from it. So it should be a lot of fun. So first 40 to 45 minutes, guys, we will be exploring all of those sort of things. And then I'll come back to the comments to see if anyone has any questions. Remember, these are interactive sessions, so please feel free to drop any comments that you might have for either this session or future sessions. If you have a recommendation for any videos in the future, if there's anything you'd like to look at, please let us know. And it gives us ideas of what our viewers are wanting to see. So greetings, hello from Jamaica and Brazil. That's super cool. It's really, really cool. Great to see so many people here. And hello to everyone over on Facebook and Twitch as well. So if we come back to the start, if anyone, these sound design sessions are on a Monday. If anyone's interested, my name is Brent March, and I run these sound design sessions every Monday. And you can find me on Instagram and other things as well, under Brent March or Sound and Vision. And I do these sessions for ADSR every Monday. and it's awesome. I love it. I have loads of fun and get to work with new toys like this one. And this one is fresh off the deck, so it should be really fun. So yeah, let us know who has experience with PS-20. It's really recently released, and let's get rolling. So something which I'll just state straight away, which took me a little bit of time to figure out, guys, is usually if I go looking for an initial patch, so it just brings everything to the most basic sort of setting. It's usually init, it's called, or it's just like a default. I couldn't find them in presets. Turns out all you have to do is literally just hit new, and it'll take you back to your initial sound. And you can hear that it also sounds sort of fat already, which is really cool. We've got a ton of presets. We've got a ton of presets here, and they're all nicely categorized as well. Let me just tighten this mic. We've got a lot of basses, brass chords. We'll look at a couple of these from each section. In fact, I guess we could start off with looking at them, and then we'll work our way over to looking at the sound design features from the ground up. But we'll look through some of these, and then I'll explain sort of what's going on here with this PS-20. So overall, if we look at this, what makes this different from the MS-20 that was released in, I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but I think it was between the late 1970s, I think. So we have a lot of things that are kept traditional to the original, even down to like seriously fine details, such as waveform, which is one word separated into two, just like on the original. So they've done loads of things to sort of pay homage to the original there, which is it's just a nice feature really, because obviously this is Korg's legacy synth, and Cherry Audio are doing their take on it, which is a crucial thing to remember. We have a lot of new things as well. So the biggest one by far, which I mentioned at the start, is the fact that we now have the ability to turn the PS-20, or originally the MS-20, into a polyphonic synth now, which is really cool. And what's interesting about that is the MS-20 has never been available as anything but a monosynth. So imagine hearing the MS-20 in a polyphonic form. It might be something that you've always wanted, it might be your favorite synth. And also you can grab this right now in the description on the ADSR website. And I think this is crazy cheap at the minute. I think there's some intro discount pricing, but it is very, very cheap. I think, if I remember off the top of my head, it was $29, I think. So yeah, link in the description if you want to go and pick yourself up a copy. I would definitely recommend to do so. So down here is where we have two different modes of polyphony. I believe that basically the only difference here is one of them is random. I think there is slight different in the way that the voices get detuned in the first and second modes. Then we have mono, which obviously, your max voices there is one because it's monophonic. And then we also have unison as well. Yes, it is $29 at the minute. So yeah, unison mode basically gives us that super wide stereo image where it's sort of like detuning the oscillators, and you can also control the detune here and even turn on the stereo spread, which makes it even wider. Sounds so good for wide basses and leads. I was trying to perform, it sounded astoundingly good. Then we have our sequencer down here as well, and you can control the sequencer step and the tuning, as you can see, C, D, E, etc. And some other things that we didn't have as well. We have a lovely little effects section down here. The distortion sounds phenomenal. Then we have a modulation section towards the bottom, and then bottom right hand side we have the reverb, and we can toggle between a plate and a spring. And the reverb sounds really, really good. Again, I think they've cut no corners with this. It just sounds excellent. It sounds high quality. Everything sounds great. We've got some features up here. We can make it the actual window larger. We can MIDI learn parameters when it opens this separate window. So if you have another MIDI controller, you can try and get a lot more hands-on with it. We have stuff like the panel section down here. That's not what I want to do. If we hit focus for this, so the thing with the MS-20 is it's semi-modular. So we have a synth that's already patched, but some of the modulation sources we can actually control ourselves. The best way to learn that with each different synth is just, I think the best way would be look at a preset, and if you like the sound, have a look what it's done. Just that reverse engineering approach is always the best way with a lot of things in music, really. The thing I really liked about this is if you squint, you can see there's a lot of fantastic things, but like I said, you have to squint. So Cherry Audio have put in this focus button, and how cool is that? Now you can see things at a much closer viewpoint, which is great if you're routing to all of these different modulation sources. And you can also change the colors and the opacity of the cables, which is just awesome. So if I go between these, if you wanted to change the color of them, you know, if you felt inclined, go for it. Like so. And like I said, transparency, you can bring it down. That way you can see literally nothing, but you can still see the color, which is something that a lot of people need to do, because when you get rid of the actual cables, you still want to see where the actual mod points are linked at least. So that's really cool that they've actually just kept a color over it. So that's really, really nice. And another thing that I don't think a ton of people will be aware of is if you click on a mod source, you actually get additional points. So there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mod points for each individual semi-modular routing point. So very cool there. Very, very cool indeed. So, other than that, everything's sort of fairly homage to the original. We do have new features as well on the actual oscillators themselves. So we have the original waveforms, plus we have some new things as well. Well, the main one really is the fact that on the oscillator 2 we have a ring modulator, and we have pulse width control here over our waveforms. You know, we got the usual suspects from the original, but I believe we have an additional waveform there. I think the rectangle controllable via pulse width might not have been on the original. I'm not entirely sure. The sub oscillator wasn't on the original, I'm pretty sure about that. So what the sub oscillator does is it brings in a note 1 full octave below the note that you're already playing. That's literally the opening to that Hills song from The Weeknd, isn't it? But that sub oscillator is incredibly fat. I think it's either a saw or a rectangle, but it already sounds fantastic without it, you know. I honestly think as well, when I was playing with this the past couple of weeks, this is like, I think this is, I've used a lot of different virtual synths, and I honestly think this one is probably the most spot on in terms of the sound. It sounds incredibly fat and analog. They've gone into so much detail here, and it sounds fantastic. So let's go through, now we've looked over all the features, let's have a look through the presets, and then we'll have a look into initialized patches and building and shaping our own sound. So basses, some of these sound absolutely awesome. Yeah, it's fat, it certainly is. So some of these I would recommend that you just dial back the volume a little. So we only have one mod point here, the cutoff frequency. Again, I'll zoom in. The cutoff frequency is routing to the output of the envelope generator. But if we actually look back here, we have 2 different oscillators. That sub oscillator is also dialed in. This one's pitched differently. This one's at a lower octave than this one, so that's what all these controls mean. Here we have our pulse width. And it's got quite a quick attack. Yeah, we got a quick attack time. And it's got quite a long decay, actually. The sustain's not long at all, but it's got a very long decay. See, my finger's off completely there. And that sounds really, really good. Let's go through a couple more bass sounds, and I think probably the one that most people want to look at is, well, the basses sound phenomenal, especially in the unison mode when you can spread them. But probably the polyphony is what most people are interested in. So I'll cycle through these, and I'll come back to anything at the end if anyone is a particular preset category you would like to dive into, which might maybe persuade you to go and buy it. If you think, like, I really want to hear what the leads are like or something, let us know in the comments and I'll come back to that at the end. Like I said, you couldn't fool anyone that this was digital. It sounds so analog. These are very 70s-esque bass patches. Very, very cool. Let's have a listen to some of the harder bass patches. So we got much, much harder attack time there. Sounds so good. Now, the reason that sounds so much wider and fatter is we have that stereo spread on, and we're in unison mode. And basically, you can put your voices up here. Again, I think it goes all the way to 16. And hear it stacking there. I always think the best way to combat this, because so many people now are so familiar with Serum, is imagine when you have an oscillator in Serum and you basically detune and you add voices. That's all we're doing here, is we're just adding more voices. And then we can bring it right down, it'll be a lot thinner. So, see, it makes a huge difference. And we can even detune those. And then we're increasing the stereo spread on the stereo image there. Sounds awesome, sounds so good. Again, I can see that sub-oscillator probably is getting utilized on every single one of these bass patches. Now I can just tell by listening to that there's got to be some noise on it. And that was one of the things I love most about the MS-20 and obviously the PS-20. They've took advantage of it. Actually, no, there is no noise in there, so it's getting dry from the distortion section, which is clipping the waveform. That sounds really cool. Okay, so basses, brass stuff, these are cool as well. You can hear the reverb there, and also there's some panning going on as well with the different voices. That sounds really good, actually. So this is where we can start to take advantage of the polyphony. Like, that sounds... I don't know about you, but I can never remember in an MS-20 sound like that. I'm able to get sort of CS80 sounds from this, which is crazy. Sounds awesome. Chords, I'll not look at these, but basically in chord mode, it will play different stacked voicings, so, you know, root third, fifth, flat third, all them sort of things. So really they're great patches if you're not super knowledgeable on your theory side and you want to maybe try and get this working with some more, like, I think it even references the actual chord voicings, major 7 sus2. Sound really clean as well, which is nice. We have MPE mode, so if you have a polyphonic, if you have the ability to play this with polyphony and expressive polyphony, basically diving into it with velocities, I think stuff like rollies and various pressure sensitive pads will be good for stuff like this, to be honest. So that's what they'll be good for. And then the pads. So here we're utilizing, yeah, I was right, 16 voices we can have in total here, and that sounds quite ethereal. It just sounds too good. Sounds so good. Sub-oscillator. Really, really cool. Love it. When you're using more voices, it gets a little bit more CPU hot, so that's the one thing to be conscious of. And there's a real reason for that, is because it's so close to analog, it practically is. It sounds as good as could get with digital. Like, this sounds fantastic, and obviously with that there's certain things like you have to utilize as much processing. The sounds are absolutely fantastic. Oh, it's too good. That's absolutely amazing. I think one thing I'd like to do with it, just talking about, you know, if you have a preset you like but you want to slightly change it, I would just spread the voices out a little bit more, detuning. Shorter decay. And I'm just bringing down the low pass filter a tad. So good. It's fantastic from Cherry Audio. This sounds very 2021 to me. If you've heard of, like, is it Medusa? He does a lot of stuff that sounds very like those sort of pad sounds. Slow attack, but with sort of like still a harsh sort of sound. So here we're using some of the modulation down here. So we're using the mod to create a chorus. I hope people are wearing good headphones and good monitors, because this sounds really extremely wide and just blows my mind. So there's the pads. Let's do about 10 to 15 more minutes, and then we'll jump in and create our own stuff, which is what's I think what a lot of people are interested in. Is it can look like, whoa, there's a lot going on there, but you know, it's a bit like we did a video a couple of weeks back, just, you know, simplifying and breaking down the process, and all of this stuff is quite easy to understand once you wrap your head around some basic concepts. Cowbell, if you're in that kind of thing. Some good snare sounds and kick sounds, which I looked at before. I think what I'll look at is the sequences, because they've really done a good job with the sequencer here. Sounds fantastic. Proper Gary Newman sort of things. Using the white noise oscillator a lot there. So good. A lot of squelch, a lot of resonance on the filter by the sounds of it. I love the panning as well that they have. That is so cool. The sequencer is brilliant. I can adjust the actual timing there. So I'm just doing this in terms of the actual rate of the rhythm. So not in terms of tempo sync. This is in terms of actual notation value. Awesome. I noticed a couple of these cyber things. There's a lot of this cyber stuff going around at the minute, because obviously the game, isn't it? That's why. Sound effects, we'll skip past them. Strings, so a bit like our pads really. Utilising all the voices I can see. Blissful strings. Bring this down the octave. Sound phenomenal. Some sort of VHS-y sounds there. Pure strings, cool. So I think, you know, general overview, we can see the new features that have been added here. The biggest one is the voices sign with the Polyphony, and we have our effects section, a couple of new wave oscillator sort of shapes, the sub oscillator, and how enhanced routing on the semi-modular side, the sequencer. So it's homage to an original with a lot of new features, which is how you should be doing it, I think, in terms of creating new virtual products. Is how can you build upon something that was already great and at an incredibly affordable price point. So let's get into creating our own initialized patch, and we'll explain what all of the functions do here. And I'll just have a water before I do, because I'll probably be talking for a while. So guys, if you have any questions and stuff that you'd like to see, just let us know in the comments, and we always take a note of what people are interested in stuff. Good to see we've got a lot of people here today, 40 people just on YouTube, and I know we'll have more people over on Twitch and Facebook, which is great. Don't forget that over on ADSR we now have live streams every Monday with myself, sound design sessions, apart from if anyone caught it at the start, then it'll be this Sunday, not following Monday because I'm away. We also have Wednesdays, and I believe we have Thursdays and Fridays, and Wednesday is the new production challenge. And we also, I had heard a rumour that there might be something coming on Tuesday as well. So if you're not, just follow ADSR on Instagram and other socials, and that's the best way to keep up to date with those sort of things. So, initialize patch. Don't go looking for initial or default like I did, which took longer than I care to admit. You want to just hit new, or you can do it with Command N on a Mac, Shift N on a Windows PC. So, if we look at how we can build a basic patch with MS-20 or PS-20 in this case, it's the same approach to, say, working with a wavetable synth or a polyphonic synth, or even in many ways a bit like the Multiphonics CV1, which we did a sound design session on a couple of weeks ago, which is a virtual modular synth. It's the same concept of taking things away from the signal that we originally hear. So there's our starting signal, and basically we're going to add to it, but what we're doing is we're constantly taking things away of the signal by basically filtering, etc. And one thing to point out as well is if you are not working with an actual MIDI keyboard, they've even gave you the ability to work with a QWERTY keyboard right here. So you've got no excuses. Waveforms. We've got a couple of different waveforms here. So the triangle's a little bit sharper, obviously, given the shape of the waveform. We got that spike in the middle. A bit more rounded on the low mids. And then our rectangle, we can dial in our pulse width, whereas we can't. If we do that with these, we don't really notice any change at all. So there are waveforms. Just think of them like different sounds. Different sounds that you might hear. Like one waveform could be me knocking on a table, and then another waveform could be me literally clapping my hands. So waveform, they're just two different things, and you can just pick which one you like. So let's start off with a triangle and the rectangle, and the pulse width is just spreading that waveform out wider. So what I'll do is I've dialed in a little bit of pulse width there on that second oscillator, and it just creates a bit more movement. It makes it feel a bit more analog and organic. Very, very cool. So the scale, what the scale function means. So if we look at the features here, we have on this side our oscillators, and then we move over to our filters, and we have our envelopes, semi-modular routing, and then the rest of it here is mainly just like After Effects and stuff like that. So it's very simple to understand, really. Scale. Do you want to have the oscillator at a high register or a lower register? So for example, the first oscillator, if I change the scale, it's so low there that it's actually a little bit hard to hear it because of the actual shape of the waveform and the oscillator. So I'll bring that up to 16. Now, the second oscillator there, I can have it up high or have it really low. I'm probably just going to keep that one. I'll keep this one at 16, do that one at 8, and then I'll roll off some of the top end with the cutoff in a bit. Now what I'll do is I'll bring in the sub-oscillator. So the sub-oscillator is another octave below the scale of the first oscillator here. You hear it a little bit more clear there because we don't have the ramp up that we do with the triangle oscillator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cycle through the waveforms just to show you the different sounds that we can have there with the sub-oscillator. So we'll stick with what we had, 16 on the scale. And then a bit of pulse width on the rectangle there. By the way, the ring at the end is a new addition. That's a ring modulator, so really advanced sort of sounds you're going to get from that, and tonal shaping abilities. Great pulse width on that. Now we can hear the pulse width there on oscillator 2. We can hear it more now because of the way that we've dialed in the scale and also the sub oscillator. So I've decided I'll put that up to 8 on the scale and this one on 16. Now what I usually would do is I would either go to the envelope generator or my low and high pass filters. So high pass, the best way to think of this is, it's quite confusing actually, but high pass actually doesn't pass the highs, it lets the highs like pass through. So with a high pass filter, you're actually letting the highs come through by rolling off the low end. So it's a low cut really, it's the opposite. And same with low pass filter, vice versa. So if I come over to my filter section, let's just shape the sound of these in terms of their frequencies. So we've got rid of all of our low end there. So I'll keep that around 2, and then I'm going to take off more on the actual low pass filter. I don't believe it tells us the actual filter, the actual like sort of filter types that they are. I can't quite, I know it's obviously a voltage control filter. I can't remember if it's like a 12 dB per slope filter or anything. It sounds quite steep, so maybe like a 24 or 32. And you can get that a keyboard track once we've done a couple more things later on. We can also drive the filters, giving them a little bit more saturation. It's good to do this stuff. So drive distortion is a great effect and sounds cool, but it actually helps you out so much in terms of if you're going to produce something using the PS-20, you want to try and introduce as much saturation in the signal as possible, even if you want it to be clean, to be honest, because it improves the overall crest factor when it comes to mixing. What that means is when you come to mixing and you've got tons and tons of different synths, say you have 20 PS-20s, that's a good one. If you have them all and you don't have any actual distortion or saturation, you're going to be fighting for room. By bringing and introducing distortion and saturation into each channel, you're going to actually shape the way that the waveform it actually fits in the mix, and that improves the crest factor. The crest factor is basically your frequency levels and what they're occupying in the mix. And I try and use distortion and saturation actually more than compression when it comes to mixing, especially synths. Because synths are using waveforms that are already distorted in terms of stuff like rectangles, the waveform's already clipped. You actually don't need to go and add much compression in them, unless you want to totally change the shaping of them, but try and introduce distortion, and we have the ability here, down here, as well as on the actual filters, which is really cool. So if we adjust the peak, that's sort of like our resonance in a way with the actual cutoff there. Okay, cool. Let's just stick with that. We can always go back and change things later on. Attack time and hold time will come back at the end. Attack time. I would say let's try something just making a longer attack. A shorter attack. All the way there, very gradual. It's quite a strong attack time, that control, so I'll leave it between 1 and 2, and then our decay. Dial that in with the release and the sustain. It all depends on the patch that you're trying to design and the way you want to be able to play it. So there the notes are going to overlap if I play quite quickly, whereas if you were to hold them and go between them, it'll fill the space when you take your finger off the keyboard. So that's what your ADSR is actually controlling. All these principles apply to any form of synthesis, but in this case we're just showing it with the PS-20 here. And then the main thing that we'll look at is how we can expand upon, like in the previous sound design sessions, we will build upon this initial patch. So we'll have our basic mono patch here, then we'll expand it through the motions into Polyphony and try and create other sounds of it. So we're starting off with basically like a bass. Probably the first thing I would have done actually is limit it to one voice mono. just for the sake of making this a mono bass patch. Bring the release down. And then hold time is a global control sort of for the entire envelope. So there's a really short attack. If I open the decay, it lets more of the actual oscillator come through. And then what I do is once I change something like the ADSR and the envelopes, I'll go back to my filters and just sort of tweak them a little bit, because I'll have changed the sound a little bit each time. Cool, sounds good to me. I'm liking this. It's you know, it's quite simple, and we'll build upon it. In terms of a bass patch, that's sounding quite good. I would probably want. I think I'll just shorten the decay time a tad, actually. Shorten the sustain and keep the decay where it was. That's roughly how I like. That sounds good. And then I always go back and just tweak my waveforms. And there's that sub-oscillator. Okay, cool. Master tune, I'll leave that where it is, and what I'll do is I will actually change the individual tuning of each oscillator. And you can also control the oscillators here. You can control their individual levels. So I've just completely took out VCO2 there. And then I've took out VCO1. I could introduce pink noise as well on this mixer stage. What that's good for is sort of helping the transient a little bit more. And you can use it as well if you were dialing longer sustained sound for stuff like polyphony and pads. Cool, sounding good. So these are pulse width modulation amounts basically for the first and second oscillator. I'll leave them for now. I'm going to start shaping the sound more with some of the tonal effects. So there's distortion. What's nice about the Cherry Audio PS-20 is we have this VU meter as well. You can see when it goes into overload as well, which is really cool. Portamento time. So if I go between notes, whoa, you're actually changing the glissando between the notes, which is, again, if that's what you're after, it sounds cool. So, what I'll do is I'll bring this up the octave just so you can hear this more. I will adjust the micro pitch of this second oscillator and it'll make the sound wider. We can hear the movement as well. So, I think that sounds how I sort of like it. We could sync the tuning of them, by the way. But we start to lose some of the harmonics and also the width that we've created by detuning them manually. Then you could start to automate in a production your filters here to open for different sections. And there we go. So that's our basic first preset, sort of like a basic mono bass sort of thing. Bring the portamento off completely for these sort of runs. Sounds great, sounds really fat and analog, I love it. I'll bring that portamento back up. Now, what I really love for leads, but also the basses, is if you change this from the mono voice assigner, and this is what makes the PS-20 so unique, is go to unison mode. We've got 8 voices now added to the oscillators, and it makes it super wide. And we can control the stereo spread and the detune. So if I detune, it'll literally spread those voices. And they're basically this pitch knob here. By doing a global detune, you are actually changing the pitch of all of the individual voices. If you whack it up full, it'll probably sound quite terrible. I mean, you could probably use it somehow in a sound design context. But if we just bring it in gradually, now we're starting to get some cool stuff. So I'll start shaping my sound differently now. Longer release time. So I want this to be a less of a short bass sound, bit of a longer sound. I mean, if you can't hear how fat that sounds, then you're not wearing the right headphones or monitors. That sounds huge. Sounds amazing. So that's the detune now, which is so cool. I love these new features that they've added. There's just so much good stuff. The stereo spread is a bit like the detune. It'll just spread it out even more. So now, surely you guys can hear that sound. It's as wide as can be. So if we go back even just like two minutes ago, went from a mono patch, which remember, mono is all the MS-20 was technically capable of. It's sort of duophonic if you think about the 2 oscillators. You could tune them differently, but in terms of voices, it was monophonic. Which sounds cool in its own right. It's a punchy bass down the center, but what they've introduced here is unison mode. There's our width. Stereo spread. That's the one for me. That sounds fantastic. Sounds so good. And I've got that longer release time and sustain. So if I bring that down with the stereo engaged, it'll be a bit tighter. Yeah, it sounds very, very fat and analog. Okay, so what we could do, one more thing to shape this sound, I guess, is we could maybe start turning on a modulation and a reverbs. And I love the sound of that stereo spread, so let's leave that on. So I've got mod and echo on. Let's create a sort of, we could do tempo synced, a bit like the sync button up here. This will do it in a time-based manner based on my doors clock. So it's currently at 120, so it'll do it sort of like a, bring up the amount. Turn off the sync, we don't get it synced to the actual crotchet value. Let's keep playing with this. They've even added spread to the mod echo. It's crazy. Very John Carpenter, if anyone can remember, Halloween. Oh yes, it sounds so good. So because I've started introducing more things here, one thing that never works great with effects is basically having too much low end in them. It gets a little bit muddy. So I start to roll off on the high pass filter there and just get rid of, I've basically got rid of everything below 100 hertz. Because that stuff's a really bit nasty down there, and in a mix even worse. That sounds much better. What would be nice in terms of the effects is if we added some noise in to sort of elongate this sustain of, I even elongated the word sustain there. Okay, so remember this is we're still working with a basic patch that we just started ourselves. Anyone who's just tuning in, remember you can go back and watch these on the channel anytime you like. Completely free. Sounds good. So this is the overall level for either the pink noise or the white noise. Pink's a little bit less harsh in terms of the frequency range that it occupies. And obviously if I sweep the filter now, we'll hear the high frequencies from the pink noise more and more. Cool, sounds great. The only thing I'm not too into is the actual the timing of the mod. Oh, the slapback sounds cool. That spread's great on that mod echo. The dampen, I believe, sounds, well, I can't tell for sure, but I think it sounds just like another EQ. So you're basically rolling off some... Yeah, you're rolling off all the high end. Feedback, careful with that one. So if you had this on a longer rate, probably get it a self-oscillating a wee bit. Bring the feedback back. Cool. Last thing for this patch, and then let's go with another one. You'd be amazed how quick you can change this into other things as well. Is just add some reverb. Play it in spring. For this one, I'll try spring. Again, dampen it. Some more distortion. This is a gritty sounding bass now, so it was a bit more pure before, but now it's a bit grittier. It's that white noise that's doing a lot of that. I'm going to pull back on the pulse width a little bit here. There we go. Okay. We've got a little bit of time left to shape this. Obviously that was just a sort of half an hour look at how we can build from the initial patch. But now, really rapidly, because of the workflow that we get with the PS-20, we can change this into a pad, a pluck, a more of a lead sound. So I would say the quickest place to go from this, in terms of a categorization of a sound, is to go to... is to turn to the, maybe like a pluck, because we've got that short attack and decay time. So let's put these up the scales. Make a bit more mid-rangey. Don't need the sub-oscillator. So this could be a lead or this could be a pluck. It really depends on what you're after. There's the poly sound. I'm going to stick on the unison just because for leads and stuff, it's so cool. It's so wide. Cool. And I'll put this back up the octave now. Just going to go through and change some of the parameters here. Pull that pitch back down. Cool. Our oscillators there are still... I like the sound that the filters are at. I'll use the ring mod just to show that, because that's a totally new feature that we have here. And let's put a bigger reverb on that. What I should have done is layered the bass sound underneath that I just made, because now we got a cool and usable sort of lead sound. Sounds cool. Sounds really good. Sounds awesome. Bring back my distortion a tad. Bring back the noise a little. I'm liking that a lot now. Keep it a tight attack. Bring up my global volume here. There we go. I'm liking the sound of that. And then we'll go to another sound from this one. Shorter. There we go. That's that sound more or less. I just want to change my decay time. I'm always coming back and changing it. Very harsh transient, but that's cool. I like that. That's what you want for them fast runs, though. Okay, cool. Let's keep running with this. So now let's go into the polyphonic mode. And let's remove, in fact, you know what, the sound that we have is cool, but I just want to show you how quick it is to create it again. So new, back to square one, basically. Bring this up the octave. I'm right down on my keyboard here. I don't need too much low end. Quickly shape my filter. And a slower attack time. And a longer sustain and release. Bring in some velocity amount. That means, depending on how I play, it'll react differently to it. So it's in polyphonic mode here, and I'm going to increase the voices and the detune, and I'll start introducing a little bit more slower attack again. Between my waveforms here. That one's nicer. Much higher up the octave. Cool. Now let's bring in a little bit of distortion. And that'll elongate the sustain. Probably been about 1 minute on the clock. A little bit of modulation. And our play reverb. And there we go. How long was that? I don't know. Something like a minute or two. And then we got a cool pad sound. Increase my voices a little bit and increase the hold time. Spread on the mod echo, because that's what it's all about. Change that waveform a tad. Awesome. Sounds great. That spread on there is so great. I mean, so many sounds. So that was a bass. Then we made the mono bass wider. Then we tried to go into sort of we did like a lead / pluck sound. And then we finished off with a pad sound, because the main thing about this PS-20 is we're going in from mono to polyphony. So it's sort of a basic understanding of polyphony, how we're taking oscillators and we're stacking the voices, which is really cool. And I think they've done a great job on this. Really cool. I'll have a quick scan through the comments for the last 5-10, just to see if there's anything that I've missed, if anyone would like to look at in terms of... apparently that sounded like Mortal Kombat. The modular part of it, chosen player, we could look at this again in a future episode, the semi-modular routing points. If you really just want to get into that straight away, I would say you could probably just reverse engineer a lot of these patches to see what's going where. But actually, a lot of the principles here will be the same from Multiphonic CV1 video we did 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3, I can't remember, about just routing. It's basically gates and modulation points, making sure that we always have an output routing to the correct point. But we could do that in a future. Let's have a look at anyone else. Yeah, people liking the sound of those basses and pads. That's great. Yeah, the panning. There's some fantastic presets in there. Also, if you're on the PS20, guys, and you click on this, it'll take you to a manual. And basically here, you'll be able to see, I'm looking at it down below my second monitor, you'll be able to see all of the questions you might have about, what does this do, what does that do, etc., etc. just heading over to and searching for some. Yeah. So if anyone's missed anything, you know, you can always like literally start the stream over again, or you can just go and watch it again, or you can go and watch it again on the channel. We'll do some of the keys. Yeah, the polyphonic thing is the best part. What is the favorite color theme? Funny, I'm not really that. I don't know. Went on a little whim there with a software glitch. I think that says to me, don't mess with the colors. I don't know if I have a favorite color. I usually just hit randomize and it looks sort of cool later on. Yeah, the DCO, I haven't had a go with that, but the DC 106 from Cherry Audio, they do a great Juno emulation that looks awesome. So again, great suggestions from you guys if you'd like to see these things, you know. So that has been the PS-20. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through one thing that we didn't really get a chance to create in terms of the patches, which was the sequences. So let's have a look for some of these. And let's have a look. Yeah, Phantom of the Opera for sure. That sounded like it. So these have got the integrated sequencer down here. You've got different quantized modes, and you can have different CV1, CV2, CV3, but basically these just have different ways. You see how the knobs change slightly? They're just running different, think of it like a scale. But they're not routed for each one. So that's the sequencer. We have a couple of mod points down here. Sadly, we don't. It'd probably be a bit confusing getting that for the last minute or two. I think this might be reminiscent from a certain Netflix show. So it was confusing there to hear which Netflix show was on about because it had a second oscillator which was ringing on with a long decay and sustain. Get rid of that one. Remember, your mixer section is here. I'm pretty sure people don't know what that is now. If I want to tweak the sound, I just think that it needs a short decay. There we go. Full on Stranger Things. Awesome. Yeah, some pretty cool Blade Runner vibes. Fifth reason, it's saying is because obviously this is tuned in fifths in terms of the intervals. Dubba 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 dubba. Man, some of these patches are just phenomenal, aren't they? Make sure you play the right notes. House stuff. Wow, they've even gone into using some modes here. That's amazing. That could do with me, bitch. That was really fun, guys. A general little recap and overview here. We basically searched through the presets and patches. Anyone tuning in late, you can go back and watch this anytime you want if you restart the stream. Or if you missed this and you want to catch next week's, hit the bell icon to be notified when I go live again. I'll actually be live on Sunday instead of Monday this week, so stay tuned for that one on Sunday. We have these every Monday, the sound design sessions, except for that one exception, as well as all other days for the week with some fantastic stuff and some really great presenters from Tetro and Stranger. And yeah, recap, just in terms of learning this synth and understanding it. So, oscillators. There are two different sound sources. And we have our filters, high cut, low cut, shaping the frequency range. And then we have our envelope generators. Essentially what we are doing with envelope generator 1 and 2 is we're just shaping the sound and the way that it actually resonates. So imagine if you play a guitar string, there's an instantaneous bow, a fast attack when you play the string. So you can change all those sort of sounds, how long something lasts, how long it doesn't last, maybe it's a short sound, etc. We didn't get into semi-modular world, but we could do that in the future, you know. If you guys want to see stuff like that, let us know. Then we have a lot of tuning, sub-oscillators. We have stuff like, again, master tuning. And then really, the new stuff down the bottom, other than the envelope, the high-pass filters, low-pass, and our oscillators, is our new polyphony mode and step sequencer and our effects. And other than that, simple synth to start. It's a great synth to start building your own stuff, because wavetables can be a great visual thing, but wavetable synths can be a little bit like, ooh, so many things going on, so many things. You've just got three, more or less. I would say these are three wave shapes. The ring mod's cool, but that's like it's like resamples. But yeah, it's a nice simple way to learn synthesis. But you can get really, really awesome and advanced sounds. And I think Cherry Audio are onto a winner with this one. So if you like this, guys, give me a follow on the channel here. Bell icon if you want to stay notified with these. And thanks as always for watching. I'm just quickly scanning through the comments to see if I've missed anything. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Actually hoping to see. Okay, we can. It seems like quite a few people are interested in that semi-modular thing, so we could dedicate a section to learning about it if people are interested in that in the future for sure. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. Link for this product is in the description. You can grab it on an entry-level discount at the minute on the ADSR site. And if you want to enter the production challenge for this Wednesday, I believe there's also more information about that over on the socials on ADSR. So my name's been Brent March. This has been Sound Design Sessions, and I'll see you in the next one, not next Monday for the 10th time. I will see you on Sunday just for this one off. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and thanks again, guys, for tuning in. I hope you found this useful and you got something from it. Have a great week, people. Bye.